Greetings from the far side of the galaxy, I'm Fury, your host most who forgot June is Pride Month, which is why you're getting this video a week late. Does the audience have any questions before we begin?
Yeah, where's the Kelly Pod video?
Any other questions? That's what I thought. Now let's get started with the first of these gay furries, with Monotone Blue. And just a heads up, there are themes of SA in this one, so move on to this timestamp if you'd like to avoid that. Monotone Blue is a yaoi manga made by the author Nagabe. If you run around in manga circles, you should probably recognize the art style since he's the dude who made Shularun, the girl from the other side. While that is his most famous work, he also has a habit of writing furry yaoi, and I do mean a habit because this isn't the only work of his that'll be in this video. Monotone Blue is a manga about the cat Hachi and the new transfer student Yaoi, who's a lizard. Hachi's life had always been boring with no real vibrancy, just a steady monotone until he sees something he shouldn't have. Yaoi's tail, which is a blue deeper than the sky itself. Hachi is immediately taken with the color despite Yaoi's desire to keep it secret, so the two of them form a simple promise. He won't tell anyone, but in exchange, show me your tail tomorrow, and that's how the two of them form an unlikely bond that grows intimate. Pardon me sounding like Mike Guy, but the manga's greatest strength is its ability to capture the feelings of youth. Hachi himself is someone who has never experienced romantic attraction before and isn't aware of what he's feeling, which causes the friction in their relationship. Themes of bullying and autonomy are also super present in the way Yaoi closes himself off to others. Due to past trauma, Yaoi struggles with opening up, which grinds up against Hachi's go-with-the-flow nature. The main draw of this manga is seeing if these characters can overcome their malfunctions to make a relationship. The characters being anthropomorphic animals isn't just for the aesthetic, instead it actually influences the story. Yaoi is a reptile and is thus cold-blooded, something that is actually important to the narrative. As someone who's aromantic, I'm always more than a little cautious when it comes to rating romance manga. But I genuinely did enjoy Monotone Blue. The characters feel viscerally real and vulnerable in a way that not many boys love manga manage to do. It's only 10 chapters long, but those chapters tend to have a decent amount of pages, so it's not that short of a read, but it is definitely something you can knock out in a day. I'm just impressed with how well it managed to hold my attention throughout those 10 chapters. I can easily see this is praised as one of Nagabe's best works. The next series we're covering is from a manga called Beast Complex, which has an art style you may recognize since it's from the same woman that made Beastars. It's an anthology series, meaning instead of having a singular long narrative, it's a collection of short stories. The stories here are all connected thematically and through sharing the same world as Beastars. So don't think of it as a sequel or prequel to Beastars because some stories take place before or after the events of the main manga. Think of Beast Complex as a collection of canon one-shots that sometimes shows residents of the hidden condo, or maybe Haru Legoshi after Beastars is finished, or maybe characters that are entirely new. The one-shot I want to focus on are about two entirely new characters, the pair from the cover of the third volume. Chapter 16, The Tiger and the Alpaca. I'm not going to use their names because I feel like it's thematically important considering both of these characters are not introduced in any typical way. The protagonist of this manga is a tiger who works in a company dominated by herbivores and thus comes a lot of social expectations. The biggest expectation is the intense need to never make it seem like you're talking down to or dominating a herbivore. However, there is one place the tiger can escape this and actually exert influence over a herbivore: the massage parlor. Or maybe that's just what she thinks because the alpaca thinks otherwise. Being totally honest, it's a little hard to dig into the themes of this one. Partially because this is a WLW story, and as you can probably tell from my voice, that ain't me. Though that's not to say I have nothing. The core of this chapter is what the tiger wants, and the physical and emotional relief that happens once she gets it. The idea of release and being honest to your true self is a theme that I think a lot of LGBTQ media uses. To borrow a line from the brisket discourse, just because a cat doesn't like being forced into a box doesn't mean the cat dislikes the box. Just because the tiger hates being forced to be submissive doesn't mean that the tiger dislikes being submissive. While the manga doesn't outright say that they, touch kitties, is definitely implied through the text and, well, the posing. Like Itagaki's work in Beastars, it handles intimacy in a bizarre way that's a little hard to understand. Like it's veiled through metaphor and layers, but isn't that part of the point of her work? Just like the characters, the audience themselves is supposed to also be trying to figure out what these emotionally constipated creatures are struggling to actually say. While it's just a one-shot in a collection of anthologies, I can say that this chapter is one that really stood out to me. There's a decent chance you get a Beast Complex video next week. Wait, no, SMT5 comes out. Okay, so the week after, wait, no, Elden Ring's DLC comes out after that. Why don't you like, subscribe so you can be there while I stream those games and for when I eventually make that Beast Complex video. Maybe at the end of the month, we'll see. The next manga recommendation we have is called Inukei No Kareshi, or Dog Boyfriend in English. This manga is probably the shortest of the lot despite having around the same chapters as Monotone Blue. That's due to Inukei No Kareshi just having less pages. This is another boys love manga, and it's focused on the relationship between a human office worker Inukei and his dog boyfriend Kentaro. It's one of those mangas that don't have a large overarching narrative, rather it's just days in the lifestyle stories in which each chapter is mostly unrelated to the last. While that's problematic for a longer series, the brevity of this one keeps the ideas from getting stale or annoying. I do enjoy the way this story blends having a furry boyfriend into the jokes, where a lot of the gags are based on Kentaro being a dog, like him being unable to hide his wagging tail. The contrast of this big, tall, muscular man somehow being the clingy one of the two just makes it all the more adorable. The humor was enough to keep me reading, and I don't really like saccharine sweet romances. The world was also more fleshed out than I initially thought it'd be because Inukei and Kentaro aren't the only couple in the manga. There's the tiger Shimada and the human Nekomiya, who act as funny foils to our main guys. Despite being colder than our protagonists, they are just as prone to doing the stupid cute things. It's just presented in a more feline way through unearned shallow confidence on Shimada's part and an unreadably plain expression that hides how smitten he is from Nekomiya. I also think the art style is worth mentioning. It manages to be a lot like some webcomics where the characters are wide-eyed and rosy-cheeked, but it also keeps the manga feel with a really good black and white shading. It's distinct in a way that I really fuck with. I'm not sure how to close out this part of the video, so I'll just say my first impressions of this manga were shaky, but by the end, I really enjoyed it. Surprise, surprise, the next series we have is another one by Nagabe. It's named Buchou wa Onee, or in English, My Boss is a Sister. This manga follows a lizard protagonist named Falnail Vincent. He's a mid-level manager at a company, well-respected and loved by his subordinates, even if he's a little weird. But what they don't know is that he goes to a drag bar, and not as a customer, but as one of the employees. That's right, Falnail Vincent is a drag queen. The entire manga is all about Falnail trying to keep his secret and the hijinks that he gets into when things get complicated. At first, I want to say it's a rather funny series with a weird concept and short chapters, until the halfway point where it becomes a boys love rom-com. And then there's a gay love triangle as people compete for Falnail's affection. It's a weird change of pace from Nagabe's other works, which are usually more serious. That's not to say the change was bad, it's quite refreshing to get something like this from him. My favorite part is almost definitely Falnail because he's a great protagonist. Seeing him desperately try to keep his secret and his coworkers' good favor with all the bombastic reactions, which is unusual for Nagabe's work, is honestly pretty funny. Especially when the more effeminate part of his personality surfaces, like when he's talking about makeup or doing some cross-dressing cosplay. But it's also twinged by those moments of seriousness as Falnail lives in the closet, fearing what others might say if he was found out. It makes him an entertaining and sympathetic character who's more than just a protagonist of a rom-com. I would speak about the love interest, but part of the tension is wondering how they'll react, so I'll keep it to myself for spoilers' sake. I definitely recommend you read this manga. It kind of blindsided me not only with its subject, but with how good it was. The final manga we're covering today is another anthology, but it's not a single chapter, rather the entire work. I saved this manga for last because it's nothing but furry yaoi. And it's called The Wise Beast of the Wizarding Wizdoms. It's another manga by Nagabe. Okay, yeah, I know this is the third thing by him in this video, but what am I supposed to do about it? This dude has written so much furry yaoi, this entire video could have been stuff by him. This one anthology book has so much content, I could make an entire video about it, and you know what? I did! Watch this spoiler-free recommendation, and then watch that spoiler-full review after you read the manga. Like I said before, this is an anthology, meaning it's a collection of smaller stories. All these stories take place within the magical school for beastmen called Wizdoms School of Wizarding. There's a variety of stories present, one about 2 young bats learning to kiss, a rabbit using a love potion on a cat, and even 2 teachers. The core crux connecting all of these stories is the irony displayed between the title and the content. Despite being called Wise Beast, all of them are ignorant of something, which creates the drama and the tension. Usually, it's that someone loves them, and Agabe manages to tell quite a few stories with this idea. Some are heartwarming, while others read more like horror. I think my favorite story of the bunch was the 7th, Cromwell and Benjamin. It's about a Griffin professor who often hangs out with and complains to the unicorn nurse. Not only do I like it for its themes about closeted sexuality, but I also like it for the way it bothers to tie all the stories together. For example, you see the Griffin professor in 2 earlier chapters, and in this one you hear him complain about things that happened in those chapters. It makes the world of Wizdoms feel real in a way that I think only an anthology story like this can do. It's a world where everyone has their own little adventures going on. I know I mentioned this way back at the beginning of the video, but Agabe does a good job of actually working animal traits into the stories he's trying to tell. There's one about biting and marking, another story about a cold-blooded lizard, and even 2 bats who kiss to share food, which, while gross, is a real thing they do. It helps these stories feel like we're actually dealing with animals rather than just humans wearing fursuits. The Wise Beast of the Wizarding Wizdoms is a fantastic manga that I super recommend you read. Now, let's wind this video down with our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to Choron, SkyKing64, 87 Werog, Garen Lefay, Zora Chow, and Marvonla. For 4 stars, we have Miko, Digging 2 Graves. And for our Super D2per special 5-star shoutouts, we have... First, Vanilla Flower, the battle-hardened god. Second, Spidey Zack, the press-turn king. Then, the good old days, the architect of divine providence. Followed by Hodari Lion, the will of the godborn. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my Ko-fi and Patreon. As always, this is your host Fury, signing out.